gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Yampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Yampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Yampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Pānātipātā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Adinādāna vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Alingadana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Kāmesu miccācārā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Kami Sumichachara Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
Musāvādā vēramani sikkhapadang samadhiyāmi.
Zavada Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
සුරාමේරය මජ්ජපමා දට්ඨානා වේරමණී සික්ඛාපදං සමාදියාමි.
Ramire Majapamadathana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami. Sad,
So
sad, sad.
let us begin the Duruthu full moon days evening Dhamma program or evening for Sri Lanka. It might not be the evening for those who are joining from other countries from all over the world. Duruthu full moon day signifies the first visit of the Buddha to Sri Lanka, and it has since become um, an event that people celebrate every first full moon of the year. So on the first full moon day, people have their inspirations, hopes up that they will practice Dhamma and they will become closer to spirituality and they will live a life that is supported by Dhamma. So to support that intention, it is wonderful to listen to Dhamma programs, Dhamma talks, and practice the Dhamma accordingly. So together with the practice, together with observing your precepts and maintaining them, continuously developing your personality and character, you also do a consistent meditation practice that ultimately brings your mind to calmness, clarity, and the arising of wisdom is possible in a mind like that. So, developing sila, samadhi, and prajna happen in that way. Today's talk is focused on seeing the Buddha by seeing the Dhamma, and I like to share this experience I had with my father, who is an ordained Buddhist monk. So he was ordained in the year 2011, and he's junior to me, in the progression of the order. And yet he's a fully ordained Buddhist monk living in Kandubuddha Vipassana Meditation Center. So I had this phone call with him, and I like to share this because from this there comes a lot of teachings that we can share, and then we can perhaps visit a sutta to kind of support our discussion today. So I called him as I usually do, and I asked him how he was doing. He said he's doing wonderful. He just came out of the hospital at the time. after doing some regular tests, and all the tests were normal. And when he came out, I just had this random question that I thought I should ask him. I asked him, like, what if you pass away? What should we do? He said, I'm gone, do whatever you like. So he had no specific instruction on how to handle the body or anything. So then I went to the next question because I knew that he was not in good terms with my mother. So I asked him, no, what if you happen to be born as a worm in my mother's place somewhere? He said, no, 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 that will not happen. So this is interesting. I said, how can you say that that won't happen? How do you assure? He said, no, I see the Buddha every day. I see him, so my mind is with the Buddha all the time. That won't happen. So I asked him, like, how do you see the Buddha? He says, Buddha is still alive in Ruangvelisaya, the famous pagoda in Sri Lanka. I said, that is impossible, that the Buddha cannot be alive. He has passed away into Mahaparinibbana. He is not alive. He said, no, when he closes his eyes, he can see the Buddha. I asked him, like, how does the Buddha look like? The Buddha looks very shiny, bright, smiling, and in a reposed position, sleeping in the Ruang Velisaya. I said, what else do you see? He then said, he sees God Vishnu also. So this was interesting to me. I said, this must be a visualization of the Buddha that you developed in your own mind that you see. And I taught him how to actually see the Buddha by seeing how that image in his mind is manifested. So, an image in mind is manifested when you have a certain visual and focus on it, and you become conscious of it, and you continuously bring conscious effort to maintain that image. So, there is the mind, mind faculty, and that visual, and you becoming conscious. You make a contact, which is called phassa, sparsha in dependent origination, dependent arising. And after a contact, after phassa, there is a feeling. And obviously, in his case, this is a pleasant feeling because he is seeing the Buddha. So it is not an unpleasant feeling. It is not a neutral feeling. He is having a very pleasant feeling in his mind. And he said he sees it consistently. I know that he wakes up around 3 in the morning and he does his chanting in his kuti, and then he's ready for their konji in the morning. They give candle, and after that they go to the vihara for the morning service, and then they have the breakfast. So that means he does worshipping of the Buddha in the morning at least 2 times. So in his mind, the Buddha is constantly present. But when I taught him that seeing the Buddha as a mental image and how that mental image is developed dependent on the eye, the visual, and mind consciousness in this case. The mind, the image, and the mind consciousness. You see, there are 6 classes of consciousness, starting from eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and the mind consciousness. So, in this case, because he is visualizing the Buddha, he is seeing an image of the Buddha in the mind, and he has that visual and he becomes conscious of it. And this type of consciousness is called mind consciousness. So, in one of the discourses, the Buddha said consciousness is like 6 types of firewood And if you use sandalwood to make a fire, this will be a sandalwood fire. So, in the same way, when you have the mind consciousness, it will be called mind consciousness. If it is I consciousness, it will be I consciousness. So, I explained these things to him, and then how dependent on that pleasant feeling, because immediately after becoming conscious of it, Tinnang Sangati Passo, coming together of three things. What three things? The mind, the visual, and the mind consciousness. Coming together of these three things: the mind, the visual, and the mind consciousness. He sees this visual in his own mind, with or without his eyes closed. Seeing coming together of these three things makes a passa, tinna sangati passo. There is a contact. Dependent on contact, passa pachaya vedana. Dependent on that contact, there is a feeling. And this always can be three kinds of feelings. One of the three kinds of feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And I said, this feeling of seeing a Buddha in mind is a pleasant feeling. And if you want an example for an unpleasant feeling, it would be ideally a moment when he thinks of my mother. And because they are not in good terms, it's because something that my mother told me, and I wanted to verify that with my father. This is something to do with their early life as living together and raising children. And I verified this information after making sure that my dad was okay for me to ask that question. But after that moment, he has developed this unpleasant mental image of that incident, and that my mom is part of it. So he always like refused to talk to her. This has been going on for a year and a half by now. So that would be an example for an unpleasant mental image. The moment she comes, or moment that incident comes to his mind, he develops some unpleasant mental image. So dependent on the mind, dependent on that image, and mind consciousness, in that instant, in that moment, there is an Tindan Sangati Passo. Three things coming together, there is a contact. That contact leads to a feeling which is a uh, unpleasant feeling, right? Dukkha Vedana, unpleasant feeling, not a Sukha Vedana, which is a Sukha is easy to bear, so it is called Sukha. Dukkha is difficult to bear, so it's called dukkha. Bearing of it is difficult. And these are ways that you can see the experience arising dependently. When I say dependently arising, it's dependent on the mind, the visual, and mind consciousness, right? Then there is a contact, making a contact altogether, and that leads to one kind of feeling. And feeling, because there is a choice being made right then and there is craving being manifested. With a pleasant feeling, of course, with the Buddha, there won't be any craving manifested, right? It is an image of a Buddha. With an unpleasant feeling, there is craving still, because there is patigha there, aversion. Aversion, you are refusing to hold on to it, you are rejecting it, you are disliking it. So there you see craving again. Craving has to do with both liking and disliking. So in this case, because it is an unpleasant image in the mind, it would be also craving. If it goes to a neutral feeling, the Buddha instructs us to see it as it is. That means see the arising of that neutral feeling in this order. In that case, if you are looking at your computer or the mobile screen, it would be a neutral feeling. If you see the content in there that brings anger in you, it would be an unpleasant feeling. If you see something like a Buddha image on your phone screen, it would be a pleasant feeling. You see how the experience changes dependent on what you see. In the seeing experience, you can see that there is a visual on the phone screen or the computer screen, and you have your physical eye. So, dependent on the physical eye and the visual and eye consciousness in this case, not the mind consciousness, because your eye consciousness is being manifested. You see one of the three things that I mentioned, either the Buddha image or an unpleasant thing that brings anger in you, or a just looking at the screen, which leads to a neutral feeling. Again, because of these three things coming together, the eye, the screen, and your eye consciousness, there is a contact there. And that is how craving is manifested. Craving again is eye craving, it could be ear craving, it could be nose craving, it could be tongue craving, it could be body craving, or it could be mind craving. So you see 6 types of cravings that are arising. And dependent on craving, tanha paccaya upadana. What you crave, you cling to. There is clinging right there. You see, when you cling to something, it you can't lose your grip. You are clinging to it, holding it tightly, taking it personally, and visualizing it more or rejecting it. So there is so much in your heart that is coming out, oozing out, and that aspect is called asavas, defilements, showing up again and again. So when you see that process, clinging, upadana, leads to bhava. Bhava is called existence. We see, bhava, the Pali word bhava, is translated into English as existence. So that existence, you exist in the material form realm or immaterial form realm or any kind of plane of existence, sensual realm. So you see, in this case of seeing the Buddha, in my father's experience, he is manifesting a very pleasant experience in his mind, which ultimately, when he passed away, might take him into a pleasant sensual realm or some kind of jhana realm if he has developed any of those experiences in his meditation. So that would be material realm, Rupa Loka, where he will be born, might be a heavenly being or some form of existence where he's ready to reappear. It should be an opapatika, spontaneous arising. So this kind of went on, that discussion with him went on until, bhava paccaya jati. Dependent on that manifestation of an existence, there will be a birth of some kind. Jati pacha, when there is a birth as a being in some place, there is jara, that means decaying, and maranang, there will be death of a being who is born someday, right? Soka, there will be grief, there will be lamentation, parideva, dukkha, unpleasant experiences, domanassa, unsatisfactoriness, upayasa. You want more and you can't have more. So that experience too will be there. Evametassa kevalassa dukkhakkhandassa samudayo hoti. In this way, kevalassa, solely, completely, dukkhakkhandassa, dukkhakkhandha, heap of dukkha, heap of suffering. You see, jati, jara, maranas, getting sick, and all this brings some kind of suffering. Why? Because we are not in control. When we get sick, we cannot say, sickness, go away. By saying that, it won't go away. Therefore, not having any control over these things shows that there is dukkha. See, and it also shows that there is anatta, non-self nature, that these things don't behave according to the commands of a self. So, dukkha khandasa samudayo hoti. There is a rising of the heap of dukkha, heap of suffering, you see. This is how I explained to him that you see the dependent origination, dependent arising, dependent on this, that arises. You see, when there is A, there is B. When there is the existence of A, there is the existence of B. When there is the disappearance of A, there is the disappearance of A. So I explained to him the cessation phenomena as well. In the cessation phenomena, this is called Nirodha. It is in the same order. You take the mind again as a faculty. If the mind didn't manifest, right? If the mind didn't manifest, and that he didn't have an image of the Buddha in his mind, and mind consciousness did not arise, there won't be the coming of three things together. Tinnan Sangati won't happen. So when that does not happen, there won't be a contact. When there is no contact, there won't be one of the three kinds of feelings. When there won't be one of the three kinds of feelings, there won't be any craving. When there won't be any craving, there won't be any clinging. When there won't be any types of clinging, where previously 6 types of cravings won't be there, therefore there won't be 6 types of clingings. There won't be existence, bhava, there won't be jati, the birth, decay, death, getting sick, grief, sorrow, lamentation, and despair won't be there. So, upayas is called despair. It won't be there. Evametasa kevalasa dukkhakkhandasa nirodho hoti. In this order, the entire mass of suffering, there will be the cessation of the entire mass of suffering. That's how the Buddha saw it, and seeing Dhamma in this order, you see the Buddha. I taught this to my father. And then I explained to him that the moment an image of a Buddha is manifested in mind, the mind is manifested. Other times, it won't be functioning in that way. The moment a visual is being seen in front of your eyes, the eye is manifested. Other times you may be hearing something, so the ear is being manifested at that time. So if you think of it that way, all these faculties, with the aid of the mind, you know that the mind is the forerunner. We live in our mind, not in a house. So in that case, the mind has to be manifested every time for us to experience the world. So whether it is eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or the mind, each faculty is manifested when conditions are present. Other times, when you are lacking wisdom, you may think that the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind are constantly present. Yes, the physicality of it is present, but if they are dependently arisen, right? If they are arising dependently, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, all these other conditions, together with visuals and what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, they should be there for these faculties to fully be fully manifested. Therefore, they don't exist in other times. And that's a fascinating thing, right? That the Buddha saw how these faculties, the sensual faculties, work. When I explained that to my father, he said, "Wow, I've never heard of it this way." So he liked that explanation, and I gave him this story of two friends taking a wooden Buddha statue to Himalayas for meditation. And this one night, one of the friends was getting closer to his realization. His meditation went well, but that day it was proving to be a very cold night, and they ran out of firewood. So the friend who was nearing his end of the practice suggested that he burn that wooden Buddha statue to spend the night through. The other friend refused it. He said, "No, burning a Buddha statue is not a good idea. You do whatever you want. I don't want to join your sin. I don't want to join that sin of burning a Buddha statue." So he said, "I'm going to go look for some firewood and I leave you alone." So the friend who decided to burn the Buddha statue burnt it, had a very peaceful night meditating, and came to his final realization. He became enlightened. The next morning, when it was the time, he went to look for his other friend. And all he met with was with a dead body. That other friend had surrendered to the elements of the nature, that he could not find firewood, he had died. You see, when I told that story to my father, he was quite astounded. He was like, "Wow." So one friend could see the Buddha in the Buddha statue, the other friend only saw just firewood. And I said, all these experiences arise in the mind. Right? All these experiences arise in the mind. And for a little child, looking at the moon would be one experience. For a scientist, it would be another. And for an ordinary person, there will be another experience. So in this way, we experience the world differently. And all these experiences are dependently arisen. And there is cessation of the experience right then and there. When I say that, you see, Tinnan Sangati Passo, coming together of three things, leads to a contact. Passapacha Vedana, that contact, dependent on that contact, there is a feeling. So the contact went through cessation for the feeling to arise, giving rise to more contacts, whether it is dependent on the eye, ear, nose, tongue, or the body, or constantly in the mind only, there is contact and contact and contact. See, old contact experiences cessation for new contact to arise. That is how all these experiences arise momentarily and they vanish. But we cannot see it with our naked eye. For us to see it, we need to develop the wisdom eye, prajna chakku. In Pali, it would be panya chakku. or the Dhamma eye, Dhamma chaku. Then only you see how each experience arises momentarily and they vanish. They arise, they vanish. They arise, they vanish. They arise, they vanish. You can see this only with your own mind, your own Dhamma chaku. So the eye of Dhamma, not with opened eyes, with your eyes closed in meditation, in reflecting the Dhamma. So this fact was taught to my father, and I hanged up the phone after making sure that he understood everything. And the next day, my brother monk, my brother is also an ordained Buddhist monk, some of you may know. So together with my father monk and my brother monk, we three came to a phone call to discuss about the medical tests of my father. At the end of that conversation, I asked my father, this was the following day, I asked him, do you remember any of the things we discussed? He said, no, I don't remember any of it. He's 78 years old. You can see that, for someone in that age, sometimes retaining such big concepts would be little difficult. And this was a great thing for me to understand that, practicing and realizing the Dhamma has to be a thing we do early in our lives so that we start seeing it even later in our lives, that we don't lose it. Because the wisdom that you develop stays with you. So we don't lose it and we don't limit ourselves to what we have grasped as Dhamma. Some people grasp Dhamma, some people grasp onto an idea of an image, some people grasp onto this way of doing things or that way of doing things. You see, these are ways that the grasping manifests in people's anger, delusion, or letting go of anger. All these are rooted in their grasping. So that leads to the point where the Buddha also told a monk named Vakkali, who was fond of seeing the Buddha every day, up until the time he got severely sick. And he told the other monks to inform the Buddha that he likes to see the Buddha. So the Buddha came and asked Vakkali, is everything okay? Do you feel you are improving? And Vakkali said, no, I'm getting worse day by day. This situation is worsening. And at that point, the Buddha said, do you have any regret and remorse in life with regard to your virtues or life? Vakkali said, no, I don't have any of those. I have just one concern, one little worry. What is that? Then Vakkali said, I can't come see you in this situation. I feel very weak, fragile. I cannot even get up and move. And that is my only regret. And the Buddha was like, what's the point of looking at this physical body? See me through Dhamma. See the Dhamma. See that this body is one thing, but the Buddha or any body is made of 5 things, 5 aggregates. When you say aggregate, it's a Pali word is skandha. You see, the form aggregate, feelings aggregate, right? Perceptions aggregate, and then volitional formations aggregate, right? Um, and consciousness aggregate, these 5, and see if there is any control for us over any of these things. Form aggregate, you can't tell your body to stop aging. It continues to age. You can't tell your feelings to be this way or that way. They change. So you see, non-self nature, lack of control. Therefore, there is suffering in there. That means you are like not able to hold things in any given moment. There is arising and cessation in each moment. So Buddha explained that to Vakkali. And Vakkali finally started seeing the Buddha. Finally, he was seeing the Buddha the way the Buddha intended him to see the Buddha, not with his eye visualizing a Buddha outside physically, or glorifying the beauty of the Buddha, or unnecessarily clinging to an image of the Buddha in his mind. He stopped doing that. He started seeing the Buddha in his own experience. When he started seeing the Buddha in his own experience, he started feeling relieved that there is no such thing as having to go see the Buddha to see him. This is not how he sees the world. This is not how an enlightened monk sees the world. This is not how seeing of a Buddha actually should happen. He started seeing how the experience arises dependently, and the experience going through cessation when these conditions disappear. And the Buddha left. Now you can see that the Buddha was slightly rude here, but that's not the case. The Buddha had very pure intention to show Vakkali, who was gravely ill, nearing the end of his life, that he should stop fantasizing, even an image of a Buddha. Just like how I was telling my father to see the Buddha through the actual experience being manifested, how he saw and how we can also see the Buddha that way. And the Buddha's famous response, Yo Dhammang Passati, so Mang Passati. Whoever sees the Dhamma, in other words, whoever sees the experience, so Mang Passati, he sees me. Isn't that so wise of him to say it? How much compassion he had in his heart to straighten up the mind of Vakali. No, he could have praised Vakali. Oh yeah, you should visualize me. You should, visualize the image of me all the time. You will go to heaven. That's not what the Buddha did. He said, see me through how I see the experience, how I reveal to the world the teaching of dependent origination, how I destructed defilements, oozing outing things by seeing Dhamma this way. And Vakali was quite pleased with this Dhamma, with this way of seeing the Buddha. He stopped wanting to go see the Buddha since he did not have that desire anymore. He saw that the Dhamma in that desire itself, right? And then he started reflecting on Dhamma again and again. That night, two deities with splendid beauty went to the Buddha and revealed to the Buddha that Vakali is nearing the end of his path, nearing the end of his realization practice. He is going to become enlightened. And the Buddha sent some monks to Vakali. And the Buddha told these monks to go tell Vakali that, Vakali, do not fear. You will have a pleasant death. Do not fear. And that moment, Vakali said, whatever that came from the Buddha, when I hear it, I don't want to be in this bed. Please lower me to the floor so that I am not disrespecting the Buddha. You see in that line of the Vakkali Sutta, you see his change of personality. When you see true character change, true personality change, there you see that Dhamma is well established in that person. He is firm, he is behaving not because of an image or anything. He is behaving in that way because he sees the Dhamma. He sees the Buddha in that way, right? When he sees the Buddha in that way, he is able to see the Dhamma. When he sees the Dhamma that way, he is able to see the Buddha. Now, after hearing that, he told the monks to bring him to a side of the vulture's peak, leave him there with a bed. And you know the rest of the story, that he used a knife after that. And the Buddha went to see him and asked monks, declared to monks that Vakali had ended his sansaric journey. He had reached arahantship. When he passed away, he was already an arahant. He had become an arahant. You see, all it took for him to do it was to just undo his habit of visualizing an image of a Buddha and just seeing the Buddha through dependent origination, seeing the five aggregates and how the experience manifested. I guess that takes us to some, it's already like 40 minutes already, or 50 minutes, right? How much more time do we have? Should I be continuing or should we take questions from now on?
We will, still we have not received anything on the questions as such, but we have some of our Dhamma friends who are here on our committee. I think Senaka is really the one who has really arranged and done everything to invite Bante. So Senaka, you have any comments or questions? You have to unmute. Right. Okay.
You explained that story, taking two examples, Vakali as well as two friends who had gone for meditation with two wooden statues. At the same time, you ended it as undo his habits of visualizing of Buddha. That's what you told me. Explain us how to explain the topic of the today by explaining how we explain this to your loving Father. Thank you.
Thank you, Senu Mahatma.
Any of our, let's see. Dr. Dila, you want to ask any questions or comments? Dr. Dila is from the UK, but she is now currently in Sri Lanka. Uday, you have any questions or comments? Uday.
Yes, thank you, sir. Bante. Yeah, I'm sorry I got a little late to join, but I was thinking. So when you say seeing the Buddha, what aspect of Buddha you should be seeing? I mean, when Buddha has so many qualities and so forth, is there any particular one, or any guidance of say how we can, let's say we understood the Dhamma, what Buddha preached, and metta, karuna, mudita, all that. And through that, I thought, the topic, according to topic, you're going to see Buddha, those qualities of Buddha, what he preached. How, trying to find, to connect those two, what aspect we would be focusing, or do we really, it should come naturally? some guidance, Bante?
Thank you for that question, Ganepula Mahatma. So the aspect that we focus on is dependent arising, paticca. The moment you start seeing the dependent arising, you see the Buddha. We expect to see an image of him, but seeing that image being manifested in mind is the actual way that we should see the Buddha. It is a wisdom way of seeing the Buddha, not any other way of seeing the Buddha. If you visualize an image of a Buddha in your mind, it is a mind creation. But seeing how that creation arose based on paticca samuppada, based on dependent arising, then only you truly see what he saw in the experience. But you mentioned an important thing when Senaka Mahatma was speaking that came to my mind. Any moment you see compassion out there in the world, any moment you see loving kindness, any moment you see mudita, altruistic joy, and any moment you see equanimity, that is also how we see the Buddha. Because after realizing dependent origination, he settled into these, he had these qualities already in him and he constantly promoted these qualities. That means having abandoned cruelty, he chose compassion. He was not cruel with anyone because he had the wisdom of the experience being manifested. Having abandoned anger, he chose loving kindness. Why? Because he saw dependent arising. Having abandoned delusion, he chose wisdom and equanimity. He sees both sides, what is happening outside and what's happening inside. He didn't have to do it all the time. He only did it during his reflections. But other times, he lived an ordinary being, experiencing the world as we do. Like when he had a back pain, he said, "Pitting me agilayati," my back hurts. Somebody else do this talk and I'll go rest, take some rest. He was going through an ordinary experience, but was he not able to see dependent arising in it? He didn't have to, because he had already seen it completely. That liberated him fully from defilements. But in his case, this is an interesting thought, that when he saw dependent arising, he saw the Buddha too. He saw an awakened being of that type, not as a visual, but other Buddhas in the past have seen that type of seeing. All the Buddhas have to see dependent arising and cessation for them to become enlightened. Everybody has to see it one day. Otherwise, they are still deluded. Because of moha, thickness of the moha, they can't see through clearly. That's how you see the Buddha. It's that kind of seeing with dependent origination. That is the kind of seeing that Vakkali had to do, and we all have to do.
Bante, there's a question from Sonali. Teruang Saranai Bante. Could you please explain the relationship between clinging and asava again?
The asava is the the oozing matter. So once you are at the level of upadana, clinging, there can be kama upadana, clinging to sensual aspects, and bhava upadana, clinging to existence, and different kinds of clingings. What's the other one? Kama upadana, bhava upadana, avijja, grasping with ignorance, and so on. So there you see, if you are placing your mind into a basket of sensuality, karma, there are the asavas, the oozing matter that arises is based on sensuality. That means, in simple terms, if you are a teenager fantasizing about your girlfriend all the time, you have that image of her constantly in your mind, bringing sensual desire in you, dependent on the image of that girl, dependent on the mind, and you being conscious of it. There is a contact. Contact leads to a craving, pleasant feeling, and then to a craving, and then to a clinging. Now you have raga, the lust that is arisen in you. So that is how asavas, defilements, arise. That's the connection between clinging and the asavas, defilements, also called kilesas.
Thank you, Bante. There is another question from that's anonymous one. Please explain whether there is any connection between consciousness and phenomena karma. Consciousness and karma.
Well, consciousness has a connection with everything, so is karma, that there can be consciousness being manifested for us to exist in every moment, in that the karmic influence and the karmic flow is current. When there is maturity of certain karma, it manifests, resulting in karma vipaka. So the connection here is when you are taking this example of my father seeing an image of a Buddha in his mind, it is a pleasant karma he did. So he has a pleasant vipaka. So there he was able to visualize a Buddha image in his mind, allowing pleasant karma to manifest. So seeing that Buddha image came as a result of him being conscious of a Buddha image in his mind. Because he saw that Buddha image, underlying that is the pleasant karma experience being manifested. If he started seeing something else, somebody is not muted, so Dila Bacon has to mute themselves. So seeing that other image of my father seeing maybe my mom in mind, I'm still trying to bring them to good terms. You know, he recently visited my mother, which is a very nice thing. So that thickness of that frustration is kind of loosening his grip, which is a nice thing. So the moment she bowed to him, he looked away, but he decided to have the breakfast she prepared. So that's a good thing. So you see how much, it takes time for him to really like lower his standards and eventually like accept the fact that people do behave and say things and he doesn't have to grasp onto them and all that. So there is that karma that he has to be conscious of, or that karma that is underlying in him that he has to free himself from before he pass away one day. Otherwise, he's taking that kind of anger with him. What's the point, right? So that's how karma and consciousness are connected.
Thank you, Bante. I think Dr. Dila Abekun, you have a question, I think, or comment.
Terwan Sarnai Bante, thank you for the
Sarnai.
Thank you for the inspiring and insightful talk. I just wondered, and you explained very well the connection that that dependent arising, and that's how you see the Buddha. Would you include actually seeing through anicca, dukkha, and anatta as also part of it? That you see the Buddha when you actually see those as well, in addition to dependent arising.
Absolutely. We were talking about it, like with the example of Vakali, how anatta is a thing that when we tell our aggregate of feelings to behave the way we want, they won't, because it is constantly changing. That is anicca, right? And there's also anatta, that they don't behave the way we want. There's no permanent self in any of those entities. And then, therefore, there is dukkha, that unsatisfactoriness that is also evident from the experience. So, of course, very, very, very nicely asked, and very nice three sets of words, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, is also visible in the dependent origination. You see, Tinnan Sangati Paso, three things coming together is a contact. You see those three things now called contact. There is what? There is impermanence there. They changed to a contact. Now there is another contact based on something else. Could be eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, all these types of 6 types of contacts. You see there's impermanence there too. You see, in each experience there is anicca, there is anatta, there is dukkha. None of them give us the freedom to make them nicca, adukkha, and atta. We can't make them permanent when it is pleasant. We cannot make them sukha when it is sukha, or when it is dukkha. We cannot change them, or we cannot tell them to stay forever when it is anatta. You see, dependent origination is, in other words, the 3 characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. When you see anicca, dukkha, and anatta, you see the Buddha. It's not like the way my grandmother used to do, like this eye is impermanent, this ear is impermanent. That's true as a statement, but she has to do the work of seeing it. You know, හැමදේම අනිත්‍යයි, මේ ඇහැ අනිත්‍යයි, මගේ ඇඟ අනිත්‍යයි. That's only a mere statement. You don't see the Buddha that way. That's a step closer, but it's not it. So, seeing the actual experience requires for your wisdom to be matured enough for you to sit down and observe and let go in each moment, using 3 characteristics and using dependent origination. Lovely question. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante. And just one more thing. Would we include the realization of the Four Noble Truths in the 3 different ways? Would that also be a part of this realization?
Absolutely. You know, realization of the Four Noble Truths in 3 different ways, the way the first sermon of the Buddha taught, is pivotal in this. That's what we actually did in this talk also. You see, there is the truth of dukkha, and there is also what we had to do. What we had to do was to see it, and now we have seen it. You see, the first truth is uncovered in 3 ways, and the second truth, the the craving, dukkha samudaya, right? The craving has to be seen, and craving has to be abandoned. That is the duty of it. And now the craving abandoned. That's the third aspect of it. And with regard to the third truth, that is the cessation, right? The cessation has to be the truth, and then what has to be done is to realize it, and the fact that it has been realized. That's the third aspect of it. And the fourth, noble truth, that is the Eightfold Path. You see that truth itself, and then what has to be done, that is to develop it, and then the fact that you have developed it in each aspect. There you see that, there you see Buddha. Really, there's no other way.
Thank you, Bante.
You're
There is a
welcome.
question from Dharma Shakya, who's a resident in the UK. I think he also sent a question to you, Bante. I think you remember and you answered it. He says, Bante, did I hear correctly that the Buddha visited Sri Lanka on this day, in this day, that is the day that we are Duruthu Poya in Nepal? In Nepal, also Buddhists believe the Buddha visited Kathmandu during his lifetime, but there is no evidence. Thank you, Bante, for your talk and your answer to my question.
Yes, the Sri Lankans want to, not that they want to, they believe that the Buddha visited Sri Lanka, especially on these three significant times. So the first visit, the second visit, and the third visit. And there are incidents that led the Buddha to visit him in Sri Lanka. And there are pagodas, shrines built in these places. These have become holy sites, historical holy sites that are very famous. So visitors from all over the world go to these places and they read the stories there. So Kathmandu, of course, is a place that that is important in his life. He even said during his lifetime that the fresh air that came from that direction was a blessing to him. He loved his home birthplace. So and of course, it's Nepal at the time, closer to Himalayas. What a pleasant place it must have been at the time with all the beautiful rivers and all that. And still is a beautiful place. So, yes, and the stories suggest that after his enlightenment, he spent a couple of years reflecting on Dhamma and establishing his sasana, that is the dispensation of Buddha. And his father sent many messengers who eventually ended up becoming monks. But this one time he decided to go see his parents and his former wife Yashodhara. So he had visited the Kathmandu or Kapilavatthu at the time, whatever that place is. So there's no evidence for him visiting as exact specific place called Kathmandu because Kathmandu may not have been the name they used at the time, but he may have stayed in those areas during the visits he made. So um, at the time they didn't have Netflix, so no documenting of this event at all.
Thank you, Bante. Then, Gamini Javira sent a question. Does the act of suicide by Venerable Vakkali contradict and violate the Dhamma as suicide is not supported in Buddha Dhamma?
No, the Buddha answers this question in the sutta itself that he had no intention of self-harming or intention of harming others in there, and that his intention has to be seen. His intention was to this was like more of a euthanasia, self-inflicted euthanasia, where he ended his life to be free from pain. That was it. It has to be seen that way. When the word suicide comes, it comes with all the baggage of other people committing suicide angrily. Vakali wasn't angry with the Buddha or himself or anyone in the world. He was free. So it's not.
There's another question from Shriyani Batuitage, Teruang Saranai Bante. Can Dharme Hasirim would be seeing Buddha? Dharme Hasirim could
Yeah.
be seeing.
Dharma Hasrima, like living according to the Dhamma, we do that because of seeing the Buddha, seeing how he saw the world. That alone, when you say Dharme Hasrima, there can be different levels to this. That you behave in Dhamma dependent on your own understanding of Dhamma. Right? Some people grasp Dhamma like them grasping a snake from the tail. That snake can bite them. Dhamma has to be understood in such a way that it is something to cross over, not for grasping. There can be, I visited this elderly couple recently, and the wife said, "You see, my husband keeps watching all the other programs on TV, but only few Dhamma talks on the TV." I said, "It has nothing to do with you." You created that that image in your mind, and you deal with it. Your husband is fine. He doesn't have to listen to all the Dhamma talks all day. That's not necessary. He doesn't have to listen to all the monks. I tell you, do not follow every monk you see on YouTube. You don't need it. You may be beyond that level of that they are addressing. They are teaching to some audience specifically, but it doesn't have to be you listening to just that talk. Otherwise, you will die tomorrow. That doesn't happen. You just have to let go there. You listen to a talk based on what your interests and developments are. There you understand Dhamma accordingly. There you see true connection with your life with it, and you see that you do 5 precepts because you see their need in your life. Nobody has to tell you, no monk has to tell you, no Buddha has to tell you that 5 precepts are important. You are seeing it. You are seeing that stealing is bad, therefore you stop it. This is a way that you live seeing the Buddha. Thank you for that
Thank you,
question.
Bhante. Thank you, Bhante. There is an anonymous attendee. Can one interpret burning the Buddha statue? He showed wisdom and he achieved the goal. The priest who did not burn the statue, can you say he was ignorant?
Yes, this is like a straightforward question where the answer is clear that, this happens to all of us. You see, Sri Lanka is a place with statues, but when you travel to Europe or to some place, touristic area, in Nepal, Myanmar, or in the United States, or just walking in streets here, you see Buddha images placed under trees, in the gardens, in lower positions, not like above our chest or above our waistline or anything. And this brings so much anger in somebody. You see, you, you need to see this. This is very, very much like ignorant. You see, that moment has to be seen the way it should be seen, that anger is present in me, it is arising dependent on somebody else's behavior. In that moment, if you chose loving kindness to that person who has a beautiful garden with the Buddha statue, no matter where they placed it, you are actually seeing the Buddha. So, in that way, burning the statue or surviving, his intention was not to harm the image of the Buddha, not to kill a Buddha. His intention was to spend the night through and finish the journey, which he did. So the other one had aversion toward the other monk, perhaps because, the other friend, because, oh, that guy is a bad guy. You see, all these thoughts come to your mind. Frustration comes to your mind. It is that frustration that led him out of the cabin into the woods to find firewoods. He did not find any. So that is a case of ignorance. Why? Because he could not see his own frustration in it. This is like the story of two monks crossing a river, and the elder monk sees a woman stuck outside, on the bank, hesitating to cross, and he helped that woman. The junior monk was upset. Until they reached the monastery, the junior monk showed frustration. And when he finally broke silence and asked, "You are not supposed to touch a woman," the senior monk said, "I touched her and dropped her on the other side of the river, but it seems like you are still carrying her." So this is so true. You better drop that. You better drop that image so that you are able to free yourself up. That elderly couple, that woman asked, see, when someone is too egoistic, what should we do? And I immediately knew that she was asking about her husband. I said, you created that image in your mind. You are the person who should deal with it. It has nothing to do with any other person, whether somebody else is egoistic or not. You develop that mentality, you can free yourself up from it.
Thank you, Bhante. There is another anonymous question. How one realized dukkha practically during meditation?
How one realizes dukkha practically is by seeing dependent origination is one way. Or the other way, as we visited earlier, is the three characteristics. So dukkha is unsatisfactoriness, also called suffering. You see dukkha as a truth. Jati, jara, vyadi, marana, soka, parideva, dukkha, domanasa, upayasa. Jati is the birth, jara is decay, marana is death, vyadi is getting sick, soka is grief, parideva is lamentation, dukkha is unsatisfactoriness, domanasa is unhappiness, and upayas is despair. So you see that the whole, and then the Buddha said Sankittena, in brief, Panchupadana Kanda, five clinging aggregates, is suffering because they don't behave the way that we intend. There is no permanent self in it, that they behave in according to the commands of the permanent self. So seeing dukkha is seeing all these aspects in meditation or outside the meditation. When you are just reflecting seated in a chair and seeing what should be done about them is to fully see them, and then seeing that you saw them fully is the other aspect that you see. So that way, in meditation or outside meditation, you see fully the truth of dukkha. That's all you have to do. There is no removal of it by force or anything, because that might be craving in your mind that manifests as a way of controlling things. That's not what you should be doing. All you can do is to just see it as it is. That's it.
Thank you, Bhante. The last question, again, anonymous attendee. Please explain whether the ignorance forwarding from one life to generate sankhara in another life explained in Paticca Samuppada doctrine.
It is because of ignorance that you have a life to begin with. If you had eradicated it, then no more life. So, in the eyes of dependent origination, sankharas, kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara, bodily, verbal, and mental formations arise. In the case of all these sankharas, formations, one birth to another, there is constantly a kaya sankhara. If you have a human body, there is in-breath and out-breath. Therefore, it is called bodily formations. And then vachi sankhara, vitakka vichara, thinking and examining thoughts, they are there. That sankhara is underlying. And then mano sankhara, you see perceptions, feelings, and consciousness. These are there. There is a being in all these aspects. So anytime those are experienced, there is a sankhara underlying each birth. So dependent on perceptions, feelings, and consciousness, thoughts arise in a person. When thoughts arise, they lead to, proliferations, prapanchas. So based on proliferations, beings behave in this way or that way. So that's all that happens. You see it, you see dependent arising, your clinging, your thoughts, your contacts, feelings, clingings. When you see that, you see dependent origination. The moment you see it, it has a liberating effect. Because of that, you become free and your insight strengthens and develops, and ultimately you lose the grip and you then slip into the masterpiece of wisdom. That is what happens.
Thank you, Bante. But just a personal question, because actually now Bante has done, I think, degree in divinity at Harvard. Now, Harvard is, if you refer to Harvard University, everyone speaks of maybe the business people and maybe people going for other types of studies, which may be either on the finance or mainly maybe commercial area. How does now Bante, I think Bante has been there. Did Bante find any sort of different type of feeling when this subject of divinity was taken, and maybe the people who are there, maybe in a say a different type of maybe atmosphere or feeling that they had?
Well, thank you, Professor Lakshman, for that question. The image I had about going to university before going and after going, and now that I finished university, these are like three different experiences. It's like you go into a university in Sri Lanka, you have a set of thoughts about it and the actual experience of it, and then the reflections afterwards. So here's the way that I saw it. It's that the school is named as Harvard Divinity School, and we were close to the Harvard Law School, and there's a river called Charles River. On that side is the Harvard Business School, and then there was Kennedy School. Different schools close by. These are all like different departments and schools. And then the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, is about a kilometer down the road on Broadway. So you see, and then the Boston University is also nearby. Very famous universities closely sitting in one place. And then University of Massachusetts, Amherst College, and all those other famous ones are also there. Lesley, Tufts University. So these environments have created an educational city in Cambridge and in Boston. So I didn't necessarily, although the degree and the school, they are named as divinity, I had the opportunity to study Buddhism and Pali language there in very advanced level, that there are professors who teach them really well. And I'm fortunate, like professors like Professor Charles Hallisey, he knows Sinhala, he can even read Sinhala, and he reads books that are very difficult to read. So I know that that place taught us a lot of good things. So when they saw me, I think it was a strange experience for some of them, but it was fascinating that they respected us so much that they have seen monks being around from different traditions too. So, and after finishing the program, I reflect on it as one of the best experiences I've ever had. That I had fortunate karma to be there, to meet friends from different traditions, different Buddhist traditions. As a monk in Sri Lanka, I would say that I was slightly narrow-minded. Like I had that otherness in mind, which means when I saw other Buddhist traditions, I thought, the Theravada is the only good way, and those other ways cannot be good. But I changed my understanding after developing friendships and making connections and listening to talks, and we kind of see how all these teachings converge and become a global type of Buddhism now, where all of us can exist peacefully. So I'm grateful for that experience.
Thank you, Bante. Just another thing on the Buddhist, since you're talking of Theravada, does Zen Buddhism have a more closer touch with the business community?
I wonder about that. I'm not sure. Well, Zen Buddhism is being practiced in Japan and parts of China, Korea, some parts of Asia. So also here in the United States, I'm not sure, but we have if you are talking about the city of Cambridge in Boston, they have a Cambridge Zen Center, and then a couple of other centers that are famous. They are teaching Zen Buddhism. I didn't see any specific connection with business population, so I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bante. I think we've listened to a very important and interesting Dhamma talk. So I will now call upon Mr. Kamal Ninavira, our committee member, to pay merit to Bante. Kamal, you are there?
Lakshman, thank you. Actually, thank you, Bante Kusala, for the very interesting Dhamma talk today, seeing the Buddha, seeing the Dhamma. And the last talk we had was on the 23rd of April 2025, when you gave a wonderful sermon about wisdom of love. And that was on Buck Moon Full Poya Day. So it's very nice to see you and for your time and the deep insight to your knowledge and the Buddhist education. We appreciate very much. And today we had over 110 Dhamma friends directly on Zoom with us. That shows that you are well appreciated worldwide, and hope that we will have the good fortune of inviting you again, and I hope you'll accept our invitation for another talk.
It depends on how my conversations with Father goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
thank you, Kamal. Sorry.
And thank
Continue.
Professor Lakshman also for the efforts he has made to conduct these Dhamma sermons. Thank you all. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Kamal. I must especially thank Bante Kusala, because when I sent the mail, he immediately replied that he will be available. Because I know that Bante told me that Bante is now currently in Canada, Toronto. Correct, Bante? Toronto
Yeah.
now or Toronto?
Yes, Professor Wajal.
And also maybe doing certain work in the US also. And I must also thank Senaka Samarasinghe, because Senaka is, I think, in close touch with Bante, and where he always is able to invite the Venerable Priest for our Dhamma talks. And we are, I think, very, I think I should say that as Sri Lankans, we are very proud to have a very eminent young Buddhist monk who is playing a very major role in the foreign Dhamma relations and Dhamma talks, and especially on meditation area where Bante is playing a key role. So we, while paying merit to Bante for all the great work that Bante is doing for the propagation of Buddhism, and also for maybe giving the correct pathway to most of our Dhamma friends who have been present here, because there are not only from Sri Lanka but from many countries who attend our Dhamma program. So once again, we are pay much merit and thank Bante, and we wish Bante that the future is something that Bante is looking forward to, and that we will not only be able to invite Bante, but Bante will also be able to educate and make the Dhamma more meaningful to many of us. So thank you very much, Bhante. And I must also say that Bhante is doing certain social service work. And if anyone wants to really assist, we will be able to support Bhante in these programs. Thank you very much, Bhante and Sadhu Sadhu. And before we wind up, I will ask Bhante to pay merit to the gods and the departed.
Let us share merits together. Thank you, Professor Lakshman Watwala, for your kind words, and I really appreciate you continuously offering these programs to the world and really patiently getting in touch with monks and making sure people get to hear these Dhamma talks on full moon days. Let us share merits. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Akasattha cha bhummattha deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu sasanang chiran rakhantu desanang chiran rakhantu tvang sada.
Sadhu, 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 sadhu. So thank you again, Bhante, and much merit to Bhante for conducting this international Dhamma program, which I think everyone has appreciated and will be really used in their normal Dhamma programs that they are conducted. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we will end the program now.
Thank you. Thank you, Lakshman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.